What's happening, people? Shay here. Uneven bounce up, you guys are well. So it's about that time. Every 4 years, the Australians come over and piss all over our Christmas as us England fans. And yeah, it's rolling around again. 2021-22 series is upon us. The first test starts at Brisbane, the Gabba, on Wednesday. I've got new guests with me for the first time. Sani, all the way from Solihull. Sani, how you doing, mate?
I'm all right, Shay. How are you?
Very well. I could be better. It's always this element of the hope that kills you, isn't it? It's always like maybe we'll pull it off. Maybe we can win. We won't get battered 4 or 5-0, and maybe we'll somehow get through to that fifth test, wherever it's going to be. Now we don't know. With maybe still a glimmer of hope of maybe even a tiny series, Anyway, I'm sure that side will put me and maybe you in our place over the course of next hour, next 45 minutes to an hour. I've got the madman, Sion Banerjee. I say mad because it's currently 3:04 a.m. IST. The legend himself, Jaffa Merchant, is with us as well to cover the Australia part. I'll be obviously referring to Sani in terms of England. I'll be keeping this on, but it's a very negative viewpoint. It's only for show, really, guys. I am pretty unfortunately back in Australia for this one. I've got Krishna Kalki as well from Bangalore coming on now. He's just going to join in a second as well. So he probably, knowing Krishna, he'll be neutral as he always is, Mr. Neutrality. So anyway, let me just crack on and just have we'll start really with the teams. I just want to bring up the squads actually. So Australia have announced their squad. They actually announced their team, which we'll get to second. But the squad for the second test is Pat Cummins, obviously a new captain of Australia. Stephen Smith, I won't say reinstated, but he is installed as vice captain, amazingly enough. Alex Carey brought to the fold as key batsman, obviously with keeper batsman with Tim Payne, obviously out now. Cameron Green, Marcus Harris been elected as the opening batsman in the first two tests, partnering David Warner, top of the order. Josh Hazelwood, Travis Head gets a nod over Usman Khawaja at number 5. Khawaja, spare batsman in the squad. Marnus Labuschagne, we've got Nathan Lyon, Michael Nessa, the nearly man every series it seems. Jar Richardson, Mitchell Stark, who Richardson obviously edged out Richardson, didn't he, for that final pace bowling spot. Mitchell Swepson, the leg spinner, and David Warner. So I've got the England squad as well. We've got Joe Root, James Anderson, Johnny Bairstow, Don Bess, Stuart Broad, Rory Burns, Josh Butler, Zach Crawley, Asiba Mead, Dan Lawrence, Jack Leach, Davin Milan, Craig Overton, Ollie Pope, Ollie Robinson, Ben Stokes back. Thank God for Stokes. Chris Wokes and Mark Wood make up the squads. So, Sani, I'll go to you. I don't want to go too much into necessarily what your ideas on the squad selection. It's been done now, really. What are your thoughts in terms of team selection going into this first test?
So, as we know, the first test itself is at the Gabatoir. I mean, they shouldn't really call it the Gabatoir after what India did to Australia not so long ago. But going into the Gabba, we know what the pitch is like. Very fast, very bouncy as well. So I like the idea of having someone like Mark Wood playing that game if he's fit. He has that extra bit of zip when he's bowling, has that extra pace and bounce that's going to be troubling the Australian bowlers. I don't like the idea of just going for your standard, English style seam bowling where it's line and length, for example. So I know someone like Ollie Robinson has been pretty good in English conditions, but I personally wouldn't play him in this test. So in terms of out of Ollie Robinson and Mark Wood, I'd go definitely with Mark Wood. I think Broad and Anderson, I think they're given, really. I think with England, especially playing anywhere, those two are the premier fast bowlers for England, so they have to play. So I'll say those three in terms of the pace attack. Spinner, I think Jack Leach has to play. I know, I was surprised, if I'm being honest with you. I know, obviously, Moeen Ali's retired, but I thought before he was obviously thinking of retiring, I thought he was maybe a shoo-in for going down to Australia, but I think Jack Leach is probably the premier spinner for England. So I think he's the spinner for England. In terms of the batting, I think this is a given as well. I think Burns and Hamid are going to be opening. I think they've justified their selection, especially over the last summer playing against India. I think Hamid slowly came into form, and Burns did as well. I know they did have some potential scary innings against India, but I think you need to sometimes have that opinion of don't fix what isn't broke. And I think so far they're going all right. And then of course you have Root. Then you have the likes of Butler coming in, Bairstow as well, and Stokes. And I think that's it for the 6. And then David Milan as well, actually. I forgot about him. I think I played David Milan as well. And I like the idea of having the left-right combination. I know a lot of people have that for white ball cricket, but I like the idea of having that in Australia where you'll be facing a Mitch Stark, a Josh Hazelwood. So having that rotation is going to be key as well. So that's my rough estimation of the starting 11 for especially the Gabba test.
So if we look at the top six, we've got David Milani, imagine, Benson at three.
Yeah.
Would you have, so are you going with Pope over Lawrence, I imagine, at six? Or how are you balancing that? Is Ben Stokes batting five for you, or would he come lower down the order?
So I'm thinking this might be a bit of a red herring, but I might have Bairstow at 5
Okay.
with Stokes
Okay.
at 6, only because I think experience is key, especially down under. I know Bairstow hasn't been in the best of forms, but with a game, especially the first test, you have to, even if you lose against Australia in the first test, you have to showcase what it's all about, what your team's about. And I think having an inexperienced player like Lawrence or Pope coming, especially in Australia, where you know the fans are going to be on England's back, I wouldn't personally say you want to throw that play into the cauldron straight away. But if I had to choose between Lawrence or Pope, I probably would go Ollie Pope. But it remains to be seen what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you, Sonny. Yeah, some good point. Interesting with Johnny Bairstow, actually. I heard a stats on Wisden's podcast last one. It was pretty damn horrific in terms of Johnny Bairstow stats over the last 18 months. Like, I think the worst average of a top seven in the last 18 months, but he has scored a run in Australia. I think the nature of his game as back foot play, it might quite be one of those pitches. Christian, I'm not sure how much you heard of what Sonny was saying there about
Mm,
his proposed England's first 11. What's your kind of thoughts on
mm.
that? Which way would you go in terms of England's makeup for the first test?
Actually, I was thinking about this quite a lot. Pope versus Bairstow is the conundrum in my head. I think David Milan makes it easily. I think Rody Burns and Hamid is done and dusted. Joe Root is there. Ben Stokes at 5 returns easily, just slots in there. Butler is going to keep. So between Bairstow and Pope, I'm a little confused. And you really, it's one of those things where both of them have not really shown their potential. So you can't really go wrong in the decision because both of them have not shown their potential. So who are you gonna back in this game, right? But at least Ollie Pope got an 80 odd against India just recently. So do you want to stick with Ollie Pope as opposed to Bairstow? And like you said, Bairstow's stats in the last 18 months have been absolutely terrible. And Bairstow has never really shown his potential in Test cricket. So maybe I'm edging slightly towards Pope. Um, but yeah, I think with respect to the batting lineup, that's how I think.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So I'll move on to Australia. So obviously you've got three guests now, so we can quickly go through these things. So they've obviously announced their first 11 already. They announced it a couple of days ago now. It was a bit surprised to me, but they've obviously shown their hand. What are your thoughts? Obviously, the main questions are Alex Carey's obviously been picked over Josh Felipe as keeper, Josh Inglis to have the 7, which I think is quite a good move, actually. Personally, I think he's the kind of guy who can take the game away from England, like Brad Hannon did 8 years ago, as opposed to, say, for example, Tim Payne, who I think you can get on top of him. But obviously, Alex Carey, your thoughts obviously in Travis Head, pipping Usman Khawaja, who's in incredible form. So's Head, but Khawaja's played fantastically. But Head's obviously been picked at 5. And obviously Stark pipping Jarichin as well. What are your overall thoughts for the team that Australia will be fielding on Wednesday, Simon?
So what I basically think is Australia haven't played a test match in 11 months.
Yeah.
So they are currently going in with the same combination that they went in the India series that they played last, right? And that did have a Travis Head and a Mitch Stark. If it doesn't work out for them in the first test, then maybe in the second test, a Jairson or a Michael Nessa might get in, and maybe a Usman Khawaja gets in. But to be honest, I would slot Usman Khawaja in place of Travis Head because his Shield season has been absolutely magnificent, right? He has averaged about what 65.71 if I'm not wrong, and yeah, that's it. Another issue is Marcus Harris because he had quite a terrible season, right? Sheffield Shield. He averaged about 36.75 or something like that. Um, so, but I don't think they have quite a lot of openers because they have Joe Burns, who was pretty shit last tour. Another thing, something that would be interesting is Pat Cummins' captaincy. Um, the thing that should be seen is whether he would over bowl himself or like he wouldn't bowl enough if the pressure is on Australia, right? Because that's what happened in the Lord's 2006 test. When Andrew Flintoff was the captain, he bowled 51 overs on the trot. No, not trot, but he bowled 51 overs in total. And Pat Cummins, on an average, bowls 38 overs in one test. So, like, we have to see, will he bowl more or will he be under bowled? That's a decision, and also rotation of bowlers. That is something I'm looking forward to in this Test series, because uh, we saw in the last Test series of Australia, Mitch Starc was done by the third Test, and Pat Cummins looked bleak in the last Test.
I think what's interesting actually about 2 years ago, it seems a very similar side to what we saw 2 years ago in terms of Australia. Even if I've got a few changes there. I mean, I want to go back to the spinner issue. Sarni, you mentioned you played Jack Leach for sure on this in this in this first test. Anyway, do you not think they'll treat him with the same kind of disdain as he did Moeen Ali, even Graham Swan 8 years ago? Could it backfire on him? Obviously, Jack Leach to me is quite a vulnerable character. Not maybe as much as Johnny Best, but maybe a bit fragile as a person. Maybe would a hammering to him kind of show Australia's mettle going for the rest of the series and set the tone? Is it potentially a risk by playing Leach with the likes of Warner, etc., and the left-handers that middle order?
No, what you're saying completely makes sense. You obviously mentioned Swanee 8 years ago, and we all know what happened to him. Obviously, he left the tour early. And obviously, what you're saying makes sense because, in terms of his persona and his personality, Leach isn't exactly as abrasive as other characters. But I think what he needs to definitely draw upon is what he did with Ben Stokes back in Headingley in 2019. That is definitely something that's going to be playing on the minds of the Australians, regardless of if people want to speak about it or not. At the end of the day, Jack Leach was there, regardless of if he got one not out or not. He was there until the end. And yes, Australians are definitely going to go after him. I think a player like especially Warner, after the T20 World Cup he's just had, where everyone was talking about how out of form he was, he's going to want to prove himself as to why he's one of the premier opening batsmen in the world. And he's going to go after Leach. But if Leach can at least, even if he doesn't get a wicket, if he can maintain it by being tight by his side, I think it's going to be a good look going for England into the series.
Thank you, Sonny. Sonny, you want to mention? You want to comment on what Sonny said there, or?
Yeah, it's about David Warner. I believe he has not had a good head-to-head record with Stuart Broad, and also even if
It's terrible.
It's crap. Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, even Marcus Harris averaged 9 2 years ago, right? In the 3 Test matches he played, he had 9.66. So I mean, the pair of them are really up against, you would think. And the sight of Stuart Broad must shit the pants. You know, going in.
And another thing is, if you look at the T20 World Cup properly and you analyze David Warner, right? He had not been bowled the hard length balls just outside of like the fourth stump. But when he had been bowled those balls, he couldn't really play it. And I think that is one weakness that England will have to capitalize on early, because he can give you the fast starts.
Okay, thank you. Christian, we'll go to you. I mean, just to wrap it up, before we move on to the next point, your thoughts on Australia's lineup for this. I mean, for what I saw Michael Vaughan's post Instagram earlier on today, and the pitch looks quite juicy. Actually, it looks fairly green. So I'm thinking
it will be shaved later. It will be shaved later.
You think it's just a bit of kidology there on the part of the creator?
Yeah, no, I think so.
It's for every test. It's for every test.
I mean, I was hoping. I mean, because I'm thinking why they want to obviously prep such a wicket like that with the likes of Broad, Anderson, Roberts, etc. And then you've got obviously a day-night test as well. You know, the second test. I think England might have a potential chance here. You know, to be at least win one of the first 2 tests, maybe. But Christian, I mean, obviously, I said before, just for a wrap up, what is your thoughts on this Australian lineup? Was there any chinks in the armor you can see?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Where do you see them?
The thing is, the Australian batting lineup has not been anything besides Smith and Marnus for a very long time. Guys. I mean, Warner also. For all the reputation he comes in with, he has not scored enough runs in Test cricket in the last few years. Similarly, Marcus Harris has not lived up to his potential at all. Travis Head has not gotten enough runs. Matthew Wade got a century in England. That one.
Travis Head averages 46 at home. To be fair to me, that's 46 in Australia.
Yeah, but the thing is, his runs have not been impactful. Australia has not been getting runs past 280. You know, they've just been kind of middling with their, even against India also. Besides Smith and Marnus, there really wasn't much batting. And Payne got a few runs in the first game, but there wasn't much batting there. So I definitely think Australia is not as, even though their batting lineup boasts of big names, they just haven't gotten enough runs. And that's just been a fact for the last few years. When you look at the Australian batting line, so there are chinks in the armor for sure. And Australia has a bit of this tendency to go with the same bowlers and try to keep them like through the entire test series. And that was one of the biggest mistakes they made against India, was they played the same exact bowling lineup all 4 tests, and they were just gassed out by the end of it, right? Probably one of the reasons why I think they lost that Brisbane test, right? Was they were just gassed out by the end of it. They couldn't take the wickets. Even in the third test, they weren't able to pick up, they weren't able to get rid of Vihari and Ashwin. So I think there are definitely chinks in the armor there. I really think that this series is going to come down to who wins the battle of Smith and Marnus versus Root and Stokes. I really do think so. I think maybe England might be able, if England can get a few runs out of Burns, Hamid, if they just cohesively sort of find runs from like if Burns can get a few 40s there here and there, Hamid gets a 40, somebody like a Pope comes in, gets a 40, right? They might be able to outscore Australia. I think bowling, there's not really much to pick between the sides, but the batting, whoever kind of just gets one up over the other in the entire series, I think it's their series. So it's tough to understand who's going to be better, but very exciting cricket lying ahead.
As much as obviously we look forward to Test series, the build up to this series has been quite interesting to say the least. For want of a better word, obviously we've had a lot of issues off the pitch in both camps. I'll start with you, Sonny. Obviously, we have a very unfortunate episode surrounding Asim Rafiq. Obviously, we won't go into that today, but obviously there was obviously a lot of comments overseas during the World Cup campaign from Morgan, and obviously we saw all the comments coming from like Joe Root still been commentating on this whole issue as well, obviously with involving explicitly his own county in Yorkshire. Do you think it's going to have a detrimental effect in the build-up, England's build-up going into this Test series, Sonny?
I think potentially only because an incident like this, it transcends sport. It transcends England cricket kind of thing. And as you mentioned, Joe Root, he said his comments where he was like, I didn't really see anything happen. We've already seen, I know it's kind of outside of cricket, but Michael Vaughan, his commentary is not actually going to be on BT Sport as a result of, what's been going on. But I think within the England camp, I know they're going to try and have the idea of we don't want it to be, spoken of in the camp, etc. But sometimes when you're lonely and, something as seismic as this has happened, people are going to think about this. And I'm sorry, when the chips are down and the pressure's there, things like this are going to come to the fore. And that's when people are going to have to show their mental strength and try and, have that to the side. But overall, do I think it's going to put an impact? I don't think it will. And I know it might be crazy me saying that, but I genuinely think that what's happened, I think people have been shocked by it. Do not get me wrong. But will it make an impact on what's going on in England cricket right now in terms of their playing style? I don't think so. Which, call me crazy, it might come to a shock to a lot of people, but I don't think it'll make a difference. I really don't.
Do you think maybe that obviously the reinstruction of the Colossus Ben Stokes, that reinstruction of him into the dressing room will really bolster morale, and maybe people are dropping their heads a little bit there, and could he's a kind of obviously captain as well as we know last year in the West Indies series. Is he someone as well could kind of galvanise and unite this change room and keep them in a positive spirits? Do you feel that way about Ben Stokes?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, I remember start of the year, I think there was talk obviously that he wasn't going to be fit for the Ashes. I know him and Jofra Archer obviously weren't going to be in the series, but Ben Stokes, his character, it's like Kohli for India. When Kohli's not playing for India, there's something missing from India. I think we saw that in the first test. I know it's a bit of a sidetrack. India against New Zealand. You saw the captaincy that we saw by Kohli in the last test against New Zealand. When we saw Rahane in the first test for India against New Zealand, there was something missing. Stokes is the same. Whenever I see England play and Stokes is not playing, I feel like you can get at this England team, regardless of if he's a great all-rounder, but it's the character he brings with it. We saw that in the summer in the India series. Ben Stokes not being there, the team's weak. It lacks balance, but also you have that passion, the desire that goes through the team, and these are characters you need in the team. We look at all-rounders throughout the history of cricket. You had Ian Botham, Kapil Dev, Imran Khan, Richard Hadley, all these great all-rounders. They have the character that transcends the team and it lifts everyone. And I think that's one reason why people aren't going to be thinking about what's happened previously in England cricket and all the shocking events that have happened. And I think Stokesy is going to be really key to England. And I think Krishna said it earlier, Smith and Labuschagne versus Stokes and Root. That is the key battle. And Stokes needs to come out on top. We know what happened in his debut series in 2013-14. He came through, showed his quality. And I think this series, he's got something else to prove. Not really to anyone else, but to himself that, I'm still the man and I think he's gonna have a good series.
I think very well said there, Sonny. I mean, I do believe that he probably still is hurting what happened 4 years ago. If we remember, it's over 4 years ago, that horrible incident that occurred to him outside, obviously, went to it. But I think obviously he missed a series, didn't he? And I think this, for me now at 30 years old, he is probably going to play the best cricket he'll ever play in the next 2-3 years. I think he thinks now, obviously, the peak of his game, he wants to be there representing his country. And I think also Australia as well. I don't care what they say. They might be prepared for him, but it will not scare them, but it will put a little bit more, of a question mark on their own chances because they remember Headingley, remember the 135. They know that he's a world-class match winner. So, sorry, I've got a point to what's been raised by Shakiran. Apologies if I've not pronounced that correctly. But Alsani, if you want to answer that question as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course he'll be an important player, right? Because he's the best spinner they've got. I don't think Dom West bowling full toss deliveries will get them wickets anyways, and I feel he's quite a good tail ender too. Like he has that grit.
Agreed.
Also, another thing I would like to add to the build up to the series for Australia, Tim Payne, right? I would like to read out something that Jared Kimber wrote. It's problematic for Cricket Australia given that they lost one captain because of what someone put into his underwear and another because of what he took out of his underwear. So yeah, that's what sums it up for Australia this year.
What about you? What's your thoughts on this commentary about Jack Leach, Krishna?
So I think it's when it comes to England and spinners, right? England post Graham Swan have really not had a dominant spinner. And especially a dominant spinner that's toured well, right? And I remember I've watched this footage 1,000 times. The Ashes 2017 footage, the post discussion. Jeffrey Boycott kept saying, we focus always on Broad and Anderson. It's always Broad and Anderson. At home, where we just roll oppositions with Broad and Anderson, just taking all the wickets. But we don't focus on developing good spinners. Like post Swan, there's not been a good spinner for England. And the guy who's been developed the most out of all the spinners on that have been available to England has been Jack Leach, and don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic spinner, and he also is handy with the bat down the order. And obviously when you look at teams that have toured Australia, everybody thinks, okay, you got to get four seamers, but that's not really the case because it does get hot and dry during the latter parts of the day, especially on day 3, day 4. The pitch does tend to wear down. Ashwin had a great series recently in Australia. Even guys like Washington Sundar in that 4th test also was really good. So it's important to have a good spinner. It's really important. People underestimate how important it is to have a very good spinner in the Australian when you're touring Australia, because you need to take those wickets at times when you're just not getting anything from your pacers. So Jack Leach, like Srikiran said, it's absolutely vital that Jack Leach has a role to play in this series. And yeah, like Sayan said, Dom Bess, is he there yet? Work in progress. So Jack Leach definitely pips him for the post there.
I was just a bit surprised actually at Don Bess's selection ahead of Parkinson, because Don Bess come out quite openly about his, I would say mental trouble he's had over the past couple of years. And Australia is the kind of place that will eat you up. It's kind of ever since Nightmare on Elm Street, the scene where Johnny Depp he sinks into the bed, and that's Australia almost. They just swallow you. They'll just swallow you, because that place is so. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure if it's 100% crowds, but even so, they're so hostile.
Yeah,
absolutely. We know what's Simon Jones lying there with an absolute agony in the goal. You probably bastard and all the rest of it. I mean, guy's Welsh, but anyway, who cares about that, right? Cussing him out with lying on the floor in agony. There's no place to hide in there. So I think Don Best's interesting point, selection. If you did go with Jack Leach, you mentioned you would select him, Sarni. Now, if you did, would you have him in more of a containing role, or would you have him in an attacking role?
I think so. Krishna's kind of mentioned it in terms of when the pitch starts to wear down and you see the cracks come out. I think, especially Nathan Lyon, when he's been in the attack for Australia, and you've seen obviously when Stark and Cummins and Hazel, they've been hitting the deck, they've been creating the gravel near the crease for obviously Lyon to attack. Now I think Leach, I don't think he's going to get that many wickets. I don't think in this series, but containing is key. I think especially since I've been watching cricket, like for donkey's amount of years, all the spinners that always go to England, they get hit for so many runs, and containing is the key because pressure building is going to affect the Australian batsmen, and that's when your seamers are going to have to then take the wickets. Now, I don't think, like I said, I don't think Leach is going to get many wickets, but containing is going to be key, and that's what I think his role has to be in this series.
Thank you, Sonny. Obviously, a key part of Leach's success will be Captain Joe Root, obviously on the second tour as England's captain. So we've obviously Joe Root in one corner, 4 years now as captain, long in the tooth, and brand new captain Pat Cummins, who comes in almost like the saviour of Australian cricket under what happened with Tim Paine. Sign, I'll go to you first. What were your thoughts, really? Obviously, you're Kolkata till you die and everything. Obviously, you've had Pat Cummins and you're in the ranks. So you've obviously watched him up close and personal for a number of years. Is he the right selection? I appreciate not a huge amount of other options, but would you have gone with Pat Cummins as a bowler as well? Would you have gone with Pat Cummins as your leader for this series and beyond?
Well, being a little biased, yes. But also on the other hand, a bowler as a captain, that also a fast bowler as a captain, that's quite a tedious job, right? You have to bowl your overs. You need to know to bring yourself in and when to bring yourself out. That's another. And I also feel Australia went for Pat Cummins, the captain, because of his perfect good boy image that he had, right? Because the captains before this were Steve Smith, who
So is it more a PR exercise as opposed to his credentials?
Yeah, I feel this is more PR based. However, seeing that we cannot judge him on the basis of one series, right? Because he'll just come on. Even if Australia loses, I don't think they'll lose, but even if they lose, say 3-2 or something, we cannot judge him on the basis of this. We need to, like, the Australian board needs to look at a sample space of around 3 to 4 series. Saying that, he has got Steve Smith by his side, who has a great record as a captain, 89% win percentage, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, it's interesting because this is after Richie Bernard, I guess this is the second fast bowling all rounder as a captain for Australia, and that time also because of a scandal or something, Richie Bernard was brought in because of his good boy image, and this is also what has happened this time. So it will be interesting how Cummins progresses with his tactics.
Christian, over to you. What's your thoughts on Cummins appointed captain?
What I find very interesting and sort of confusing about this is, yes, I mean, Pat Cummins, of course, I don't know whether he deserves the captaincy, but whether he's definitely the best player and the best team man Australia's had for a long time now. Whether he's the right captain, obviously time will tell. But what I don't understand is Steve Smith as vice captain, because you made a decision after the ball tampering scandal that Steve Smith would not have any leadership positions. And then suddenly now you're giving him a vice captaincy role. But at the same time, you're skeptical of whether Steve Smith can be a captain or should not be a captain, but you're completely confident in the fact that he can be a vice captain, and you're confident on the basis of what? Right? You eliminated all leadership position position possibilities for Steve Smith after the ball tampering scandal, and now you're suddenly saying vice captain.
No, but that was for David Warner only. They didn't specify about Smith because they knew they might need him.
I'm not so sure if that was the case. Oh, Sani, you can go ahead. Yeah.
No, but I was just going to say with Warner as well, like if you look at Australia in general, their squad, their starting 11, other than Smith, I don't really see personally captain material.
Exactly.
And I think what Cyan said was true about the PR move. When they initially went with Payne, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked that Australia chose Tim Payne. I don't think he personally showed captain qualities, his personality, his persona. We saw that obviously. I know they retained the Ashes, like 2019, but I wasn't really amazed by his captaincy. And then we saw against India. He got bullied. I mean, even Ashwin was like, yeah, it's going to be the end of your career anyway at the Gabba. And that's exactly what happened kind of thing. So I just think the personalities in Australia, I don't think they have captain material other than Smith. But the problem is, if you go for someone like Warner, he already has, I'm not saying he's had scandals recently, but we all know what happened in the pub in Birmingham, walkabout or whatever, in the bar, when he punched Joe Root. He's got his own scandals, so you can't exactly go David Warner
the
as
cock
well.
incidents as well, so... It is okay. Sorry, Christian, carry on.
Yeah, no. So I mean, great point by Sani about Warner there. I will say though, I mean, see, to develop a captain, to really choose a captain, you need somebody who's cemented his place in the team. And this has been one of the issues with Australia. Like Travis Head has not cemented his spot in the team. Usman Khwaja has been in and out of the side. Marnus has only recently, I mean, he's cemented his position in the team, but is he too young, or is he qualified for the job? Was Marnus even given a thought? I don't know. Nathan Lyon, obviously, maybe you could have gone in that direction. Maybe you could have gone even for Josh Hazelwood also. But then it's the same issue again. Do you want a fast bowler?
Yeah.
Or do you not want a fast bowler? So I think that is the bigger issue here. Is they haven't had they haven't had a player. They haven't developed a batting core besides Steve Smith, David Warner, and recently Marnus Labuschagne. Because everybody's just been in and out of the squad. So who are you gonna choose if you want to choose? If you're so hell bent on choosing a batsman as a captain, who are you gonna choose besides Smith?
Do you think that maybe picking Stephen Smith as a vice captain is really a sign of a lack of faith in Cummins over the course of a series, and that maybe, whilst the captain in name, it's actually probably part of a whole leadership group. Stephen Smith was consulted many a time 2 years ago, so it could be a case of we got Cummins on paper, but the reality is it's been led by obviously Langer in the back, but then you've got Warner, you've got Head, you've got Cummins, you've got Stark, you've got all these kind of senior players in the side line, etc. But Cummins just simply moves people around.
Okay, now not
put it on a stick, but somewhere towards he's not going to be the dominant captain. I feel like everyone's going to look at Cummins for every kind of move they make.
Can I go?
Go on, Simon.
Yes, Simon, you go. Sorry.
Okay, so even before the Tim Paine scandal happened in the Marsh Cup, Cummins was the captain for New South Wales, right? And I'm not saying that they kind of premeditated it or something like that, but they might have given it thought, because even Stephen Smith was in that team. There were other players also, Josh Hazelwood. They were all in that team. But Pat Cummins was chosen as the captain, and he had a good. He had a good record. He won 3 out of 4 games or something like that. That was my point. And also saying that now that the game is evolving, do we really need a captain who has his tactics in himself? There are coaches, there are data analysts, right? Because we have seen teams having just a toss captain, just a captain on paper, and then the coach and the other assistant coaches are now controlling it. So it can be the same case here also. Maybe Justin Langer is the one controlling it, for all we know.
Yeah, no, I was kind of going to say something similar about the Justin Langer thing. I think Cricket Australia are definitely going to go for that kind of persona, that they're not the typical Australians that they were, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever. And I think Justin Langer is a big part of that. But also on the topic about what you were saying, Shea, about how is Smith there running behind the scenes. It kind of reminds me, not necessarily the same situation, but I remember when Ponting was captain of Australia, and this is going back the 05 Ashes around that time. And a lot of people in Australia at the time, they were talking about Shane Warne being captain for Australia because they liked his qualities. And I'm not saying Ponting was a bad captain, but around that time, you could see why they wanted Shane Warne as captain in terms of the Australian team. Now, in terms of what's going on in Australia right now, yes, Cummins might be a good fit for Australia, but deep down, they know it's Steve Smith. He's the captain. And I think that's what everyone deep down knows, but they won't necessarily say it, because I think they'll lose credibility as well if they turn around and say, next series, or I don't know, 1 year down the line, we're going to have Steve Smith. They'll lose all credibility, so they have to go with Pat Cummins.
You think it's a case of right place, right time, because it got from almost like Alto fry pan into the fire, from Tim Paine to Steve Smith. It could have been a massive PR disaster, couldn't it? So maybe it's just right place, right time for Pat Cummins. They've said before, golden boy, the looks, everything else, good guy, etc. I actually think Steve Smith's probably the best man for the job, personally speaking.
Agreed.
Personally speaking. But I think you have to sometimes move on. As much as I'm an England fan, you have to say, well, you deserve a second chance. England, Mike Allison, 95, dirt in the pocket sign, you remember that. So, you obviously that incident. So, he still led afterwards, you know what I mean? So, fatu per se, it's happened on the history of cricket, you know what I mean? There's scandals around certain captains, but they've generally given second chances. But anyway, we'll stick with you, Sonic. Obviously, we'll go to the side and Joe Root. As I said before, I think, Sani, you mentioned in a WhatsApp group, Joe Root's the first man to lead England and Australia twice.
And not a single century, yeah.
No,
Okay,
I was literally about to say that. It's crazy. This is a huge, huge series for Joe Root. He has not scored a century in Australia. His average, which is normally around 50, drops to about 38 in Australia, which is seismic. Because if you think about it, in Australia, you need runs, regardless of whether a team doesn't bat that well. You need to get at least 400 runs in an innings if you want to at least have an advantage that you can give your bowlers the time to then obviously bowl properly. And I think with Joe Root, we all know what happened in the last series, 4-0. I know it wasn't a whitewash because obviously one test was drawn, but it effectively was a whitewash, let's be honest. We all know what happened in the first test. James Vince was going so well, and then it all capitulated after that run out. But Joe Root, I'll be honest with you, his captaincy has been very, very iffy, I think. I don't know about you, Shay, but some test series he's been great, others he hasn't been great. Maybe that's just captaincy as a whole. But this series is defining because I think in terms of the squad, other than maybe Jofra Archer, there isn't anyone really missing if we're being honest. Everyone seems to be fit and firing. So, Root, big series, I think he has to bat very well for England to do well. So a lot is on the line for Joe Root. I'm not saying he's
And
going to lose
another,
his captaincy if he loses the series, but we will show his quality as a captain if he does well this series.
But I mean, guys, this year, 1,455 runs, averaging 63. I mean, he's in the best form of his life. Who, honestly, out of the three of you, would you on 10 innings, you imagine he'll bat? Do we not think he'll score one century
I think
across
he
the
will.
no,
five
he
test
won't.
matches?
He
I
won't.
think he will. I think
I think
he will put this to bed. I really
I
believe
agree.
this time.
I
I
agree.
think he'll put this to bed. I think he
He
knows.
won't.
He knows it's Sion. He knows. All right,
I believe in
Zion.
we'll
Cummins.
see, man. We'll see.
Cummins owns him, man. Come on, look at the stats.
Not this
And
time.
also another thing,
Not this
this is
time.
the first time. This is the first time in history of cricket, if I'm not wrong, the number one Test batsman versus the number one Test bowler, captains for the
Oh,
opponent
really?
teams. Yeah,
Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, I think we'll have to see. I mean, how this pans out. I think Root will actually do well. Actually, I think him and Stokes will be. Obviously, there are gun players. I think they'll step up. I really do.
I agree.
My worries about Joe Root, I agree with you, Sonny. I think he lacks imagination at times. I think he lets games drift. We saw it last year in the India series. In fact, Krishna Sign, you remember that. You let games drift at times. And my worry is if he plays Jack Leach, for example, how will he utilize Jack Leach? Because my experience of watching him, with Moeen Ali, I think I've had a better record on the Joe Root's captaincy if he was trusted more. And it's always a common problem that we have with England captains and the spinners, especially at home. But anyway, I have to see how he'll, because the reality is we are going to face, and I know, we're going to be under the pump. Winning the first two tests, it's going to be some kind of like 269 for two or something. You know what I mean? Like about 74 overs. And then they're going to turn around, and who's going to throw the ball to? Probably himself, actually, if anything, to try and nick a wicket. Do you know what I mean? But I think we need some kind of ingenuity there in order to try and take the game away from Australia. Because the kind of thing is, I think with Alex Carey at 7, he's a kind of guy. He's no Gilchrist. Don't get me wrong, but he's the kind of guy who can take the game away from us. If we kind of can get, it's the kind of guy I can see getting out Labuschagne and Smith cheaply. And for that, I mean, on the 50, I think, okay, we have a dart at the tail ender, and then Alex Carey hits 63 off
you call
50
Mitchell
something, and
Stark,
then
Pat Cummins tail enders.
yeah, but I think Pat Cummins. This is the thing about his captaincy, bowling and batting. I think one will probably wane. It probably be his batting, if anything. But we'll see. Christian, what do you think of me on Joe Root and how we should approach this series?
See, Joe Root does what Joe Root does best, which is scoring runs. And I think the more runs he scores, the more the series will be tilted in England's favor. And like Sani also pointed out, and I had said earlier, this series is going to come down to who scores more runs between Root and Stokes and Warner and Marnus and Smith, because that's where it is. Captaincy wise, I don't really know what he should do differently, because see, in India's a tough. When he was in India, it's a tough place to tour. Okay, India is a very tough place to tour. You really, with respect to the captaincy, really you can't. I don't know how much you can do. When you have and you have all the resources in the world with Anderson. Anderson is still as magnificent as ever. Stuart Broad, Ollie Robinson had a good series against India as well. So I really don't know how much you can do differently in terms of captaincy. But of course, Root should needs to get runs. He has to get runs. He should anchor as always. He's in the form of his life, as you said, number one Test batsman, scoring runs everywhere. So I'm looking forward to Root against Cummins and Hazelwood. I really, really am very excited to see that battle, how it goes. I think Root will get runs. I really do. I
Mm.
really do think so. Australia. See, Australia is not. At least in recent times, you can score runs in Australia, and I mean, we India proved it in Washington Sundar and Shardul Thakur. Like, we scored runs against Australia with our with a side that was
Mm.
highly inexperienced. Rahane scored runs, and Rahane has not scored runs
Oh
at
yeah,
all in the
yeah.
last few years. Rahane got 100. So I don't think it's impossible. If Rahane can score 100, I think Root can too. Obviously, that's a vast generalization, but I mean, come on, you get the point. So I think that's there. I just want to go to the point of Pat Cummins though, and I think I also want to address Rajiv's point that you just put up on the screen. Warner was banned for leadership and Smith for 24 months. I didn't know that, so thank you very much, Rajiv, for telling me.
Yeah, I saw that.
But Steve Smith has to. I mean, it just makes it's so much easier, the entire debate, if Steve Smith is captain. It's just so much easier. Like Pat Cummins, now we're like thinking, oh, is Pat Cummins going to be do well? He's the lead bowler. He's the lead. He's got to score runs at the end. He's got to do all these tactics. Is like it's too much for a guy like Pat. And Pat Cummins does well when Pat Cummins has to only worry about his bowling. He's a workhorse. He does his job well. Now, I honestly think the character of Pat Cummins will crumble as captain. I just foresee it. I don't have a lot of confidence in his captaincy. I know you don't agree with me, Sion, but I'm saying it. Um, and I think also Australia. See, we've known Cricket Australia to have strong leaders. Strong leaders is what defines Australia. They don't. Australia has never. I mean, Australia is not the team or not the side or the cricketing country to just duck underneath all this and worry about okay, the outlook is not good, the PR is not good. Like, when did Australia? Obviously, Australian cricket has changed. I don't know for better or worse after the ball tampering scandal, but come on, man. Like, you can't go to the other extreme and be like, okay, we're the nice guys now. You can't try to be nice guys. Australia is best when they're attacking, when they're aggressive, when they play the brand of cricket that we know and love them to play. Like, you have to pick your captains accordingly. I just think this is a little overcompensating from Australia to pick Steve Smith and to pick Pat Cummins over Steve Smith. I really do think so, and I don't like it personally. Yes, what happened? The past is the past. It's over. It's done. We've moved on. We've made mistakes. We've learned from them. Let's make the right decisions.
I mean, you told me a lot there about Root as a player, as a batsman, his capabilities, what he should be achieving. But how should he be approaching the series, though, Krishna, in terms of his body language? He's quite a mild-mannered, gentle guy, I would say. But it's that really kind of character you need to win in Australia. You think of Andrew Strauss 10 years ago. Granted, he had a much better size at his disposal. I think there's no question about that. I think no arguments. Peterson, Cook, Trott, all these guys. You had Anderson as Pomp. You obviously had Broad. You had Graham Swan then. He had a much better side. So he has to rely on himself and Stokes and maybe Anderson, you could say here. He has to be greater than the sum of his parts. Doesn't he have to... Doesn't his approach need to be slightly different to what it normally is? And maybe slightly out of character if they get to trying to be competitive in Australia?
See, for Root, right? Joe Root, obviously, yes, he is a little mild mannered. He's a little sort of nice boy type guy. And he's also up against a nice boy type guy. So that'll be interesting to see whether which nice boy character wins over the other. I think if it was Steve Smith versus Joe Root, again, Steve Smith would have the edge. We saw that in 2017, right? But Joe Root, of course, I think he does definitely need to be more aggressive. And I think here's the thing, right? With Australia, I've also noticed is when you're aggressive against Australia, they crumble, and they're the side that boasts of aggressiveness, and we are the attacking side. And off late, they haven't done that in the past. But again, we saw shades of it in the India-Australia series with Matthew Wade and Tim Payne having a go and being all chirpy. But they do crumble. And Australia they have very obvious weaknesses, and I stress on the word obvious. And Joe Root really needs to expose that 100%. And there's no doubt. And I think he can. I think he can. He just needs to allow himself to do it.
Well, one thing might have helped England for me in this itinerary that's been set. It's come out today that Perth Test match has been cancelled, the fifth one at the new stadium. So I believe it's between Hobart and Melbourne hosting the second Test match. If they do or not, the third and the fifth. As it stands, obviously the Gabba, the Adelaide Day Test match, they in Melbourne, then Sydney for the New Year's Test starting 4th of January, I believe, and the fifth Test on the 14th, which we're not sure that it's going to be anymore. They also even switched it around. You remember, obviously it's just Gabba, Adelaide, Perth, where they smash us every time. Melbourne, Boxing Day, Sydney, MCG, and then SCG, isn't it? It's always the way. So with the bloody seagulls and pigeons and shit, always in early January, isn't it? On Sydney all the time, man. To always see them. So obviously switched it around. And I think they did that because they thought, well, you know what? If it is closer than we think, they don't know the Perth wicket, so we'll play like an absolute terror for them, and then we'll just get out the necks and be bumping them everywhere, and that's it. But obviously that's been cancelled now, so. I'm maybe a bit optimistic here, but do England have a slightly better chance to be competitive in the series?
I think what's helping, and I think you
judging
mentioned
this itinerary, I'll start with you, Tony, and then finish with Krishna.
Sure. I think what you mentioned about the Adelaide Test being day night, I think that's huge for England. That's a big chance. But also with the new changes, obviously in terms of how the Perth Test is being moved, I think that benefits England again. And the reason I think that is I have a feeling they're going to make it another day night Test match. I don't know why. I just got a feeling it's going to be a day night Test match. And I think with the pink ball as well, that's going to help England. And I think with the itinerary as well, I think you mentioned obviously Boxing Day, MCG. I know obviously we know what happened in 2011. It worked out beautifully for England. But overall, it's not really a good hunting ground, to be honest with you, for England. So I think it's going to work out in England's favour. But I think a lot depends on where that fifth test plays, and if it's day or night. Because if it's a day night, I favour England.
Okay, Simon, what's your thoughts on this?
England's best chance is the day-night test. You give Anderson the ball when it's nighttime, and Australia are done for. In an hour or so, he'll clean them up for sure. And also the first test, I believe, because Australia definitely have a few shitty selections like Marcus Harris, Mitchell Starc, to some extent Nathan Lyon, because he hasn't done well in the last series. I would definitely like to see someone like a Mitchell Swepson come in the later half of the series, because he has been doing quite well, and also Usman Khawaja. Openers, I don't think they have any more openers. It's Marcus Harris and David Warner set for the series, right?
I don't think Marcus Harris will see the end of the series. I don't think he'll see the fifth test, personally. And arguably, you might not see David Warner, but I think it'll be a really ballsy move, but we'll see. Christian, what's your thoughts?
I think Australia. Why Marcus Harris? I still don't understand. I don't understand it. I really don't. Usman, why not Usman Khawaja? I've never understood. Usman Khawaja is in the top 5 batters in Australia, easily, without a shadow of a doubt. The guy is a class player. He has to be there. And Australia not picking him, I think that itself is the chance. That itself is a chance. Just get through that top order and, of course, get Smith and Marnus in early and put some pressure on them. Get their wickets too. Smith also, Ashwin showed how to get Smith out, right? So, I mean, if England can take a leaf out of India's book, right, with the whole offside conversation that India had before the series, right? Probably try something similar. I think England have a chance. I honestly think England have a chance in all 5 test matches. Of course, the day-night being the biggest chance. Like Sani and Cyan mentioned. I really do think England have a very solid chance, more than what people are saying. Australia, yes, will be competitive. There's no doubt. But I think England have a really good chance with Stokes, especially coming back in huge confidence boost. Psychologically, also, I just think, with Stokes coming back in, it gives massive confidence to England, massive confidence that they've lacked for a while now. Australia, I don't know exactly what kind of psychological edge they have, but just with the whole captaincy thing with the Tim Payne scandal recently, I think it's just a little bit on edge for them. So we'll have to see how they come out and play. But I think psychologically, England just slightly a little better. Yeah.
Simon?
Yes, psychologically speaking, it's the crowd for me. Australia's biggest plus point, because there are some newbies in the England squad who will be touring Australia for the first time. Hasib Hamid, I guess, Rory Burns. Then you've got Ollie
Ollie
Pope,
Pope,
Zach Crawley, and
Lawrence,
a lot.
Leach.
Ollie Robinson, yeah, Leach. So you've got those players, and it like we know what Australia is. They can be racist. They can be anything they want to be to make the team win, right? Um, so it's the crowd for me. As long as see Australians love to score runs. As long as you tie them down, you'll be fine. If you let them score runs, they'll run away with the match in the first innings.
All right, let's go to predictions, boys. That's what we just said now. So the fun part. So I know what I mean. I'll start with Sani, and then Cyan, and then Krishna. So the problem is here we don't know the fifth test.
Yeah.
So let's if you want to leave it open ended, that's cool. Let's say the fifth test is played in Melbourne as well. I don't know if you want to say that to argue the case, but if it was at Perth, what would you have said, Sani? If it was Perth,
If it was Perth,
yeah.
I personally would go with Australia.
What score?
I think 3-1 Australia. The thing with England, right? This is why I'm conflicted. I might be a fan, whatever, you think with your heart, your head kind of thing. But the problem, I just think sometimes I see the England team and I just think it's the batting. I know Australia haven't got a good batting, but they're playing at home. They can deal with the conditions. And I think, if I'm being honest with you, their bowling attack, I'd say, is better suited to the Australian conditions than the England bowlers. That's just my honest opinion. I say 3-1, but then who knows what happens in the first two tests? Maybe England nick a test, then I might have to change my prediction. But I don't know what it is. It's just that it's the Australian. They always find a way. It's like the T20 World Cup final. They just find a way. Who thought they were going to win the T20 World Cup? No one did. They just find a way, and I think that's what's going to happen this series as well.
Side, what are you doing? 5-0?
4-0.
Australia.
Because Brisbane will be washed out. No, because rain is predicted.
I actually checked the forecast. Like what for the first couple of days or the whole 5 days?
All 5 days.
Really?
Should be playing in England then, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So maybe that case is why maybe they prepare at Green Tops try and get results in 3 days because they might only have 3 days worth of cricket.
No, but if they prepare green top, then it will be disadvantage for them.
Well, I'm not sure on that. I'll get to my point in a bit. Christian, what's your thoughts about?
I'm gonna make I'm very happy to make this prediction because I have no skin in the game here. None of my team is not playing, so I'm very happy to make a prediction. I'm gonna say England 3-2. Yeah, I'm very confident. I'm confident about it. Seriously, I think so. I really
do
think
know
so.
the squad.
This is why Christian does not make predictions. You know what I'm saying? That's why he doesn't make predictions.
You got Rory Burns.
No, I tell you what, I don't know what it is. I have
3-2 England. Honestly, do you really think
I have a strong feeling. I really do have a strong feeling.
I hope you're right about it.
England are gonna do something special. I really do think so.
India.
It doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. But I don't know. I have some faith in Stokes and Malan also. I have some
But the
faith in
thing
these
about
guys.
Stokes, I don't think he'll do well for some reason. I don't think he'll do well. Because
You just want to
just
shit on
coming back
all.
from
You
injury.
just want to shit on England, man. You say fucking Root
Come on.
won't do well. Stokes ain't gonna do well. Nah, man.
And then whole day it's Morgan,
Morgan.
right? It's whole day it's Morgan. Yeah.
And Morgan shit, bro.
Yeah, once you get retained by, once you get kicked out, pick him up again if it's cheap. You watch.
Nah. He's not even coming back as a water boy.
We'll see that. I would laugh so hard, man, if they pick him up in Yorkshire. Innit? Yeah, deal with him in
Because
a couple of years.
there are no other captain materials, so he might just come back.
Me jokes, man. I'm gonna say, it says 5 results. Five. Yeah, without no rain. I'm gonna say 4-1 Australia.
One being the day-night.
Yeah, I think a day-night test match. England.
I
think England, if they had any thoughts about them, I actually think they need to be quite clever in the selection here. They need to play almost the same hands that Australia did 2 years ago when they came to us. I think you don't play Anderson 5 test matches. You definitely don't play Broad. I think Ollie Robinson will actually have a lot to say in this series. I think he's the kind of guy who can keep them, not necessarily take a lot of wickets, but can bob them down and frustrate them. I think he's a guy who can do that. Also, I really like Ollie Robinson's character. Dare I say that? But he's quite a feisty guy. He's a very confident character. We saw him in the New Zealand series. But my point is, on the field, he's a very cocky chap, and I like that. I want people with a bit of nuts about them, cojones, you know what I mean? I don't want feeble little guys coming on the field, man. I don't want a Dominic Bess, all due respect to him. I don't want that. I want people like we had 10 years ago, a Tim Bresnan, the incredible hulking Chris Tremblett. We had Peterson, we had Trott, we had Pryor. We had men in that field, man, ready to sweat blood. Collingwood, you know, these kind of guys, man. And that's what you need to win in Australia. You need a Stokes. You need the likes, obviously, of an Anderson. People who, can get in the trenches. So I want to see. I like Ollie Robinson from that perspective. Sorry, what are you going to say?
No, I think what you're mentioning is completely spot on with Robinson's character, and also as well. Yes, I did say Wood should play in the first test because of what the pitch tends to be like.
I like that selection. I like that.
But I think going forward, Robinson makes complete sense. I think it's funny. You've got as your title, McGrath was right kind of thing. I'm not saying he is Glenn McGrath, but he has got a little bit of that in him in terms of the line and length and just keeping it very consistent. But also, I think one name that hasn't actually came up during the whole discussion, and I'm just intrigued to see what people's thoughts are on him. Where does Chris Wokes fit in all this?
Yeah, good fair point. Yeah, I was just thinking, when you mentioned this, I was thinking Chris Wokes because I can't see them fitting them. I just feel that they'll all play 2 or 3 test matches. I don't see Anderson and Broad playing all 5.
I don't see either. I don't see how it's feasible.
Yeah. I mean, Anderson, we know he's 39 and a half years old. I think, you save him. You might play him first test match and you've got to play him day-night. You've got to play him day-night test match. But he might step out from Melbourne and then come back at the 4th in Sydney. We don't know, but I think they must have a game plan, England. I also think they might catch Australia on the hop because they haven't played for almost a year test cricket. I don't care what anyone says. That does matter. It's like a boxer, not boxing a year. You get ring rust, right? You've got ring rust.
Hence my 3-2 prediction. But anyways,
Okay, just a thing. You guys are discrediting Australia and the day-night test, but remember the last time Australia played a day-night test, they rolled the team for 36.
Listen, the batting. I just said 4-1 to Australia. I think England's batting's horrendous. I think if you get through Root and Stokes, then it's just a bunch of kittens.
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of kittens. I think Hamid is going to get eaten. I think Burns, he might do the odd score.
You got Ian Bell right.
Ian Bell was great.
I mean,
Ollie Pope.
Listen, we'll see about Ollie Pope. He did well in South Africa 2 years ago. People said the same kind of tracks to be prepared here. He might do well as well. We'll see. Bairstow might play. Again, Bairstow's the kind of guy, he might be lacking ability, but I tell you what, that guy's up for a scrap.
He's got balls.
That guy's got nuts. There's no doubt about it. No one's going to front up to Johnny Bairstow. So he's up for it. Do you know what I mean? So you might see him come in. I just feel you need that grit. But I just think ultimately, I think Australia are better in batting and bowling overall. I think Pat Cummins is a wonderful bowler. A truly great. He's one of my favorite cricketers outside of of my just neutral cricketers. I love Pat Cummins. I remember he did in 2011 when he burst onto the scene. I think he's a fantastic bowler. Hazelwood, almost underrated, but he's also an amazing operator. Mr. Stark is the issue, I think, for Australia. That third teamer could be the issue for them because Cameron Green. We haven't mentioned Cameron Green. He's batting. What's he going to feel like? Because he hasn't really impressed me that much, to be honest with you, especially with ball in hand. If they can get on top of Cameron Green as that 4th-teamer, maybe England might have a chance to take it into the later sessions. You see, so it's all these variables here. I think both sides have problems. I just see England having more problems than Australia.
I'm really shocked why Khawaja is not playing the first test. I'm really surprised.
No, they're going in with the last combination that they played with. Like they're playing it safe for the first test.
I think it's a big risk.
Khawaja's going to play. There's almost no doubt.
He will play.
He will play. By the 3rd test, I think he'll be in.
Second test.
I think he'll be by the 2nd test. Yeah.
No, they'll give Harris 2. They'll give Harris 2, especially to win the first test. They'll give Harris 2nd test, right?
No, but if he comes in, he's coming in as a middle order batsman, not as an opener.
Not if Head makes runs.
He won't.
If Head makes runs, then Khawaja replaces Harris, right? I mean, there's really a viable option. You're not going to drop Smith and Labuschagne, are you? So where else can he fit, right?
Does Warner get dropped though?
No, never. They're not dropping him.
He'd have to Broad would have to be all over like White on Rice again, like it was 2015, right?
Who will you drop Warner for? Like who you what you gonna
No,
get
I'm
him in?
saying if he has a shit first two, if he gets on a pair in both the tests.
Nah, nah.
It will all depend on what the series scoreline is. If he flops Australia win, who cares? Warner plays. If it
Yeah.
comes down to the final test and it's poised up, I don't know. If it's 2-1 England, you might even think about dropping Warner, right? Potentially.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's
No,
an interesting series. But
JL backs Warner to death, man.
yeah,
JL.
JL back Tim Payne too.
I think he
Looks
sees
like a
himself in
tandem.
Warner, right? I think he sees himself there
Yeah.
in Warner. I think once the first test finishes, we're going to say, oh, yeah, we forgot how shit England actually are. Because we forgot. We got beat by New Zealand. We got
Yeah.
smashed by India in India. We would have lost to India at home. We drew with Australia at home. We're not a great test side. We're just not. We haven't been
No.
for some time.
I know.
Since Flower left, we haven't been a good test side. Moles came back, did nothing. Bayless did nothing in the test arena. Silver's. I mean, the highlight has been an average South Africa side away from home. What else have we done, Sarni, as England side
I
in the
think,
last 6-7
yeah,
years?
since
Test side.
2013, where, let's be honest, we beat Australia 3-0, who just came off literally ridiculous incidents like what they sacked, what's his name, Mickey Arthur, Lehman came in. They had so much issues going through the camp. They had like players like, with all due respect, Chris Rogers opening, who, just came in when he was like, 42 or whatever. He was already willing to get his pension coming in. So, you had stuff like that going on. Before then, obviously, 2012, won in India, great performance. Obviously, we're number one ranked side in the world. Since 2013, if I'm being honest with you, Shay, I just can't really say like I've been impressed because, like you said, the winning of South Africa weren't the side that they were 4 years prior. So I'm not. And I'll be honest with you, winning in Sri Lanka and then going to India like they have previously, Sri Lanka isn't the place like they were 10 years ago, where they had like Murali and what's his name, Rangana Herath and players like that, Shangakkara, Jaiwardena. They're not the team anymore. Even winning places like West Indies, winning Test, it's not the same anymore. It just boosts your confidence to then set you up for failure when you go to places like India and Australia. Even New Zealand, I wouldn't even fancy England going to New Zealand, to be honest with you, because I reckon they'd do all right on their green tops as well.
Well, we lost
But I
New Zealand
believe
away. We drew
Yeah.
with West Indies. We lost New Zealand
Yeah.
away. We couldn't even beat West Indies last time playing in 2019.
Exactly.
We drew 1-0, right?
Yeah.
We've not been a good test side for almost a decade. That's just a fact.
We just
As
rely on
Sonny-
good pitches at home, and even then we sometimes lose. Like you said to us, New Zealand, 2-0? Or was it
We lost 1-0 against New Zealand.
1-0,
didn't
yeah, Edgbaston test. I was there, yeah, we lost that. It was ridiculous.
So we've not had a good test win for some time now. So I just think we're forgetting that. I think we're just it's always because it's been some time's lapse. It's Emperor's New Clothes. And like Christian, for example, is thinking, oh yeah, he could have got a chance. He's forgetting, man. We got Hasim Hamid and Rory fucking Burns up in the batting for us, man.
Even I've even forgot. Do you remember? I think it was the 2017 or 2018. I think when did India tour England before when Kohli was on? He was in insane
2018.
form. 2018, right? Even that series, if you look at the games, India could have won some of them games if there was a few decisions that went in the way.
Not for
I know
Sam
it was-
Curran.
Yeah, I know. I think it finished
Yeah.
4-1, did it, or 3-1? I can't remember. But
4-1.
either way,
It-
right? India could easily have picked up a few more wins, and we need to definitely factor that in as well.
That was the closest 4-1 series result you'll ever see.
I know,
that
honestly.
scoreline was beyond flattering. I mean, Christian, before we wrap up, tell me why you think England could win this.
See, honestly, I'll tell you what it is. I think, the third test against India, that was very uplifting to see England play the way they did. Just the way they got runs there. I know it's been a while. I know that the fourth test also just came and India blew away that game. But I just see in Australia having a few more problems than that meets the eye. I'm not really confident in Cummins. I'm not. I'm not really confident in this batting order that Australia have kind of just put together last minute. Okay, and they're suddenly saying Harris is going to get runs. They're suddenly saying Head is going to. Yes, Head had a good Sheffield Shield, but when his Head converted that Sheffield Shield into a great performance, he's not. He's. I mean, if you said his average is 46. Where did he get his runs? He got his runs in like 200 all outs. 250 all outs, right? Something like that. It's not like he's converted those, and they're obscure 250 all outs that nobody cares about, right? So there is, I definitely feel there is something there. If the England bowlers can expose some weaknesses and they can just get if they're batters, they can find something. I think they can find something in Root, they can find something in Malan, they can find something in Stokes. Maybe they might find something in Pope or Bairstow, and they might be able to find something in Butler as well. Obviously, Burns and Hamid, if they get runs, it's a plus. If they don't, I mean, it's same old, same old. But I just see something there that's, I mean, not there that meets the eye. And obviously, all of you guys don't agree with me. This year, like, okay, Australia 3-1, Australia 4-1, 4-0, all this, right? And you guys are saying that. And I mean, when you look at it on paper, and you look at, okay, yeah, England has not scored, but there's just something about this series and the way that, Australia has played in the last few years that communicates to me that England have a chance, even though they don't want to accept it. It's there, and Australia is not the place where, it's unwinnable. It is winnable if you have the right attitude, if you have, if you seize the moments, you can. um I don't, and you guys and Shay, you were saying that 2-1 against India, would have probably been 3-1. I really don't know. I really don't know, because India did have a few issues in that series. They had few more issues than they would care to count. Virat Kohli is not getting runs, Pujara was not getting runs, Rahane is not getting runs. So it's not like, I think it was that series could have been 2-2. You can't rule that possibility out at all. At all, you just cannot. And Stokes coming back, that also is huge.
No, that I agree with.
It's huger. It's huger than,
Yeah.
it's larger than it seems. You just cannot take that out of the equation. So I really see something here for England. And like Joe Root also said before, like, the confidence that India. Obviously, I keep bringing back India because, I mean, I'm still in the Brisbane days. But if he keeps saying, if India can do it with the C team, why can't we? Right? I think he said something along those lines, right? And that at least that gave me a bit of, like, sort of, it gave me like, okay, Root has some confidence, that he can do something here, right? England has some confidence. So if they can translate that on the field, I think we're in for a very, very hot series.
Sonny, you want to comment?
Yeah, no, I just completely, like, Christian has made a really good point, and we haven't really spoken about it. I know we're going to wrap up and stuff, but David Milan, he's going to be key, I think, at number 3. He had I think he's got the tools there. I know naturally he's not really good against spin, but I think with the paces that Australia have, I think he's going to have an all right series, if I'm being honest with you. And I know, he hasn't really shown too much when he's, been in England, especially the test. I know he's had a few, decent test matches, but I think he's going to be key. And I think if he can have a good series, Root, and then obviously Stokes, who knows? Anything is possible, but I don't really trust this side, to be honest.
I think England needs to be greater than the sum of their parts. I think that's the only way of somehow sneaking a victory. If they pull off this victory, this supersedes 10-11 by far, in my opinion, because I don't give this team really much chance. Where that England team was a fucking machine under Flower. If you remember, that was every player knew their fucking role on that side.
Agreed.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
But
they used to bore the shit out of teams and just pummel them down, man. The application and the roles, and plus he was sprinkled with world-class players throughout the side.
Everyone was at their peak, but also during that series as well. If I'm being honest with you, Australia were kind of on the wane then. They're like,
they had
like players like, no offense, but Ben Hilfenhaus, he was all right, but he wasn't amazing. Mitchell Johnson wasn't really.
What was his name? Xavier Doherty.
Oh yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just it's cycle, isn't it? It's cyclical, and that's what happened. Australia way down, England the way up. I just kind of met at a perfect time for us as England fans. So that's true. And this is what's making this series more fascinating. They're both more closely matched on paper, you could argue. But anyway, I've said my part. So you want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to say something. Y'all are again forgetting how shit England are. The batting is horrendous.
Now that is in the 1 hour and 9 minutes you played so far. That's his most poignant, insightful comment we've heard in an hour and 10 minutes. We're forgetting how shit England are. No sign, man. I mean, I'm
bowling also. I don't think Anderson has a good record in Australia.
Not true.
Second innings so far. I think in England he hasn't had recent times. He's not been. His average is really high, which is not good.
Last tour he played well actually. You look at the stats. He did quite well 4 years ago.
Until he doesn't get the swing, I don't think
But
he's
again,
going to do anything.
using more sparingly. Why flog him when you've got
True.
Robinson, Wokes, Wood, Broad? Why flog him? You don't need to.
Agreed.
You've got options there. You can play him in 3 test matches. Use him, sprinkle him. Use him correctly rather than flog him. He's dead by the 4th test.
But where is your out and out fast bowler like
That's true.
Stark or
That's why
Cummins?
that's why I play Leach, because my problem I have with England attacker for some time now, it's right arm over the wicket between 80 to 83 miles an hour. And that's why I like the idea of Sally mentioned Wood. Totally agree with that. Give us something different. Where's
Where's
Give him
Ollie
Wood.
Stone?
Give him left arm.
Where's
No,
Ollie
he's Stone's fucked, man. His body's done. Honestly, the guy's shot. He's just got so many injuries. I mean, he's already discussing what walking away from Test cricket already because his back is just too problematic. Go on, Krishna.
I think Ollie Robinson's the key here. I really do think so. I think Ollie
Again,
Robinson.
we are forgetting he's a 120 kilometers bowler.
He's not 120, man.
128.
Talk about 120.
Cyan has this unique. He has this great exaggeration skills. He's very good at it, and and a lot of times he's very wrong in his exaggerations. But I'll leave that aside.
I'll prove my point.
I mean, obviously you guys are calling it for Australia, and I look like a madman on this podcast, and I'm very happy to look like a madman on this podcast. It is an English podcast. It is Uneven Bounce. It is Shay's England cap, and I'm very happy to support you, Shay. Even if you don't have confidence, I will give you as much confidence as you want. Okay, but no, it's there is some sting in Ollie Robinson. There is a bit of a I guess a lightning in his tail. Which I really enjoy. I liked it. I like that. Mark Wood, obviously, I think is an interesting idea. I think toying with Mark Wood at as opposed to, I think Mark Wood over Broad for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that if you can get into it, I think you can get into this Australian order. And also another point I really missed is Australia tend to get botch their tactics in pressure situations. We've seen it now. We've seen it for a while now. They did it against Stokes and Headingley. They did it against India in 2-3 test matches. There is definitely some weaknesses in this Australian order that seem larger than expected. Yes, England is shit, as Jaffa Merchant says. England is a shit team, but I don't know. There's the Ashes. The just the environment of the Ashes. The willingness to do well, the confidence given by India winning. I think England can take a lot more pride and confidence into the series than everybody's giving them credit for, which makes me again look like a madman. But I really, really, really have some hopes in this English team. I really do.
Well, it's probably a good way to round off this English podcast. You put it there, Christian, on a high note. Anyway, so yeah, thank you to everyone for coming on.
He's an 80 miles per hour bowler. So 128, I got his spot.
What? No. 120 kilometers, 70 miles an hour, dude. Go check it out. Do conversion, man.
No, 88. I said 128.
Okay, 128. Okay, I think he can actually clock. But I saw him clock 80 to 83 miles an hour against New Zealand, dude. That's 132, 133. Listen, he's not a Vernon Philander speed bowler. He's a little bit quicker than that, to be fair. And he's 6'5", man. Don't forget as well.
Yeah, he's tall. He's
very tall, man. And if we forget as well, the boy can bat. He can also bat. And that's why I think you get the nod, because I think they know it's a play safe tactic, but they're going to need runs down the order, Wokes, Robinson, etc. They're not going to play 3 bunnies. That's why, and I think Broad is like walking duck in Australia, to be honest. So I think Robinson, for me, has got it over Broad as for the first test anyway. But anyway, we will see. Sani, really great to have you on, man. Really well put together points. Really enjoyed having you on. I really hope you can come on again. I do want to do a few shows, obviously surrounding the Ashes, obviously 5 tests. We might do 5 shows, but definitely 2 or 3 would be great. So especially when England win, we will definitely do a show. When England win, 100%.
Get Jaffa on that show as well.
Yeah, Jaffa, he'd be the first one coming out. What time it is? He'd probably tell that day. He'd probably say I'm too tired. Probably that's the one time you can't come on.
No, it's my country playing, so I don't care.
Exactly. But obviously, Jaffa and Cyan, what's your new page called, by the way?
Oh yeah, it's called Jaffa Merchant. It's a meme page. It's on Instagram, and contains Premier League, football, and cricket memes. So yeah, go follow that.
Go check it out. Sorry, I've got to
Nice.
refer to you. Obviously, your YouTube channel. You've obviously got a sports YouTube channel, don't you? On Siren Live events.
Yeah, so I mean, the nickname Sani, you can put that in YouTube. It's best if you type in Sani Sesh, so SANI space Sesh. Check out all the vlogs on there. There's going to be more coming over Christmas time. It's been really busy at work, doing exams and stuff, so I haven't really had time recently to upload. But don't worry, Christmas is coming early for everyone, and there'll be a lot more videos. And yeah, check out the Instagram channel, which is just my username there. So Sani_sport content creator. I go everywhere and anywhere, so yeah, check it out.
There's really good stuff over there. So our first notice sign actually for this YouTube pop-ups is really good. Krishna, where can we find you?
Same Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. You know where it is. Yeah.
You will see Krishna's. You'll listen to hear his dulcet tones on your stories if you add him as a friend on Instagram. So Krishna's you're actually a really good. I would say piss man, but you're actually a really good singer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I do. I just Jossie, man, but I actually like your music. It's nice. You played. You had one something today on Instagram. You were singing like a duet or something.
Yeah. Did I placed an ad? No, I don't think I.
No, it's on your stories on Instagram. I think it was on stories.
Yeah. I think so. That was like day before yesterday or something. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. By the game starts in I think in about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours for us.
For you guys. Yeah.
I mean, for you also. For everyone, I think it starts in about a couple of hours.
Wait, today's not the game. It's
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
No, tomorrow. Oh wait,
tomorrow. Yeah.
No.
Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Oh, okay,
Wednesday. Yeah.
I thought
That's the only problem with Down Under. That the timing's so bad for us sometimes. So.
That's Perth was always quite decent, only 7 hours behind.
Yeah.
So Perth's actually not too bad, but like Sydney and that lot, it's just a bit of a nightmare, innit? But I'm a currently rise anyway, so I'll catch the last session. I'm certain. Sorry, anyway.
Yeah, normally because I'm normally up around 6. I tend to be the same, to be fair. So
catch the last session. So get something. I mean, we can see how much we're getting pummeled in it. To be honest with you, the last 2 tours, man, it's like, oh god, just wake up and you almost like you just wake up in a bad mood, man. When you see these scores for like 1 for 320 or something. It's like, oh, just whatever, man.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean when you wake up? So.
I will say though, when India plays Australia, obviously, and the same thing with Ashes, right? Waking up at 5:30 a.m. and just making yourself a sandwich at 5:30 a.m. and watching a game, one of the best feelings.
It's cool now in India, so
it's so much fun.
Great.
So much fun.
Great feeling.
Yeah,
Australian tours are always brilliant.
I remember the 08 tour, India tour to Australia was one of the first. Obviously, we know what happened with Harbhajan and then obviously Cummins.
Yeah.
But that was a good tour because, like, growing up, one or two of my favorite players, obviously, Dravid was just like, for me, like he was something else for India, in my opinion. But like, you look at Australia now. I know we're going off tangent. We're meant to finish the chat, but you look at Labuschagne and Smith, and for me, I'm not saying they're Dravid and Tendulkar, but there's a little bit going there. Like they're 2 Australia's best players. You got Labuschagne who just defends like the wall. And then Smith, who's more extravagant, like Tendulkar. Obviously, they're not the same, but there is always comparisons that they are always good to have.
No, listen. From a neutral point of view, I'm looking forward to seeing Labuschagne and Smith. I mean, Smith, I really hate Smith because he's such a annoying cat for us. He's so annoying because he's just goes on and on and on, doesn't he? So, but I have to say, from a neutral perspective, to watch these guys play is just it's a joy at times. Pat Cummins, for me, I said my favorite cricketer for Australia. Absolutely, I love Pat Cummins. So, I actually hope he does well. I do hope he does well. So we'll see. But we'll leave it there anyway. Let's reconvene in 5 days, and hopefully, me and Solly be smiling.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
And hopefully my predictions would have come right.
Let's hope. I really hope.
The madman becomes the sane man. Let's see. Let's hope that happens. Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, well, I'm still sporting at SRH, man, so I'm probably madder than you, to be honest. All this bullshit, you know what I mean? So, anyway, fucking hell, man. Anyway, we've got to do a live for the auction, man. Tell me the date, isn't it? The date for the...
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's second week of Jan or something like that. When it comes up, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I need to not be at work, so...
And we'll watch get all the best players.
No, not all the best players, all the players. Because for Cyan, everything is purple. Everyone is purple. Right?
No, Morgan's not purple.
Sorry. Oh.
Just if you make some bad purchases, don't duck out like you ducked out the fucking final last time, man.
Yeah.
We have to get you on the CSA.
We wouldn't know if it's a bad purchase, right? We'll know it after the IPL gets over.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. Good point. We'll say that. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you so much to all three for coming out. Especially all due respect, Krishna and Zion. It's like 4:23
Yeah,
a.m.
definitely.
IST. That's nuts. But thanks so much, legends, lads. Sonny, really glad to get you on. Obviously,
Appreciate
been
it.
trying for a little while. So yeah, we'll see you again. And this is obviously Shay on Even Bounce. Hope you enjoyed the pod, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers.